the first few years, I literally was probably in bliss. Like if you think about a monk on the hill, they're in the present. And that's what makes it so amazing. I only had the present. I had no past memories. I had no future. There was no way to think like that. So I lived in the present. I made decisions in the present, hence choosing ball gowns because it was pretty in the moment, things like that.
Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacoby Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, Reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to the Healing Cocoon. Today, I want to start the episode with a question. What would you do if you forgot who you are? How would you redefine yourself? How would you recreate yourself if you suddenly found yourself existing without any of the limitations created from your childhood memories, all of your experiences to date, all your understanding, your cognitive understanding of the world around you and how that world works, plus all of the filters through which you see the way that world works, because often we're not even seeing the truth of how the world works, we're just seeing how our world works. What would you do if you could recreate yourself? Who would you be? How would you live? I'm asking you this question because today we're speaking with someone very inspiring. Her name is Lani Cooper, and she is an industry-leading expert in health, fitness, and recovery, and is best known as the CEO and founder of Mobot, the world's first water bottle and foam roller in one. And to know Lani is to know someone intensely passionate about the power of prevention and having a positive impact. But there's actually more to Lani's success story than first-rate concept design and sports therapy. It's her personal recovery journey that's going to inspire you the most, because Lani sustained a serious head trauma during a friendly game of beach touch rugby. And while she initially thought it was a concussion, it ended up being a very serious brain injury. It involved loss of brain cognitive and physical function. She couldn't understand vocal tones, face recognition, and would lose clarity constantly. She had no sense of taste or smell, and she couldn't remember what food she liked, and she had no filter when she was speaking to people. She had very short-term memory and had to use reminders like sticky notes and alarms literally to help her function and get through the day. Her recovery involved really intense rehabilitation, including hyperbaric chambers, meditation, listening to music with specific hertz frequencies, acupuncture, essential oils, and so many other healing modalities. She kind of really had to go in and throw everything at the wall to regain herself, to recover herself. And her story is one of resilience, aptitude, community, reflection, determination, all of the things. I think you're really going to enjoy this chat today, and strap in, buckle up. Here we go, Lani Cooper. So tell us a bit about the track you were on before you sustained the injury.
I had moved to America. I brought my business over to America, and everything was going what I would say in a trajectory of very well. The societal, typical society, view of how a business and brand should grow. Prior to that, I'd had run-ins with my own health and mind and trauma. and had recovered from several things, including eating disorder, drug addiction, things like that, inadvertently affected so many other areas of my life. And I felt like I was on a really good path. I'd come up with the idea and I'd patented it. I'd got everything started myself. I was very proud of myself. We'd just gotten in with Equinox and Puma and Reebok, and I would always go down. I have played rugby since I was a kid, and the boys would play rugby 3 times a week on the beach in Santa Monica, and I was there without fail. It was my meditation, because I find in business I have to be a little bit more masculine than I would like to be, and stepping in and out of that and finding places where I can release it kind of safely. I felt limited in that. So rugby was just a place where I could be a little bit aggressive, be myself, knew I was good at something, because sometimes when you're an entrepreneur and constantly failing forward, you need to, fill up your confidence bank account with something that you know that you're good at. So I was there quite regularly, and this one Sunday, casually playing, a man took it a little bit too seriously, and it was just social and touch, and took me out, and I landed on my head, and I got a concussion that turned out to be a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, that took me out for several years. I lost cognitive, speech, hearing, taste, smell, sight, changed my behaviour, my personality. I lost all memory, short, mid and long term. So that started a very interesting journey to where I am now, that for most part, most people wouldn't know if you met me now, which I'm very proud of. But under the surface, there was a lot of rehabilitation that went with that.
Wow. And this happened while you were in America without family, friends, health insurance. Wow, I don't even know where to start with this. How long, I guess, did it take you, for these symptoms to set in before you realized you had something serious going on?
It was back at the end of 2016, and I was here by myself, no health insurance, sort of no one else here. My business partner at the time was my ex-husband, and he was in Australia. And it was the next day, one of the guys from rugby was meant to help me with work, and he said he turned up, and I was sort of walking around in circles, as mumbling and stuttering. I didn't make any sense. I was really aggressive. He just said, he looked at me and said, "You've got a concussion." And there was a guy on the team that was an ER doctor, and we checked in with him, and he said, "You've got to wait maybe a month or so to see if it gets worse or better, to see how bad it's going to be." So within a couple of months, things definitely got a lot worse, a lot worse. And I went in for some tests, and it was just, the test just said what we knew. And unfortunate thing with a brain injury, everybody's very different. So there's no real, straight protocol that you can do, but I've definitely figured out some hacks along the way that have helped me and several others. Now that I'm better, I can talk about it with others, that really help get you on track faster.
How did you start even the recovery process? Do you read books? Do you where do you get this information from? The internet?
I was lucky in that I'd had a background in rehabilitation and sports therapy and healing modalities, not only just for myself and my journey, but also for my clients and athletes that I work with. So that was obviously in there somewhere, and I would have moments of clarity. But for most part, in the beginning, I was fairly in a vegetative kind of state that I couldn't do a lot. A lot was at rest. Support is huge. I was super lucky that my ex-husband and my best friend from high school flew over from Australia and looked after me. There was my business and my ex-husband, my best friend, me, and a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in a studio apartment in Venice. I'm so glad I don't remember.
Right, of course, because you lost your memory. So is that 2 years of your life you actually can't remember?
I don't remember a lot of it. I have memories that are in my body that don't, I'll see someone or see something and I'll feel something, which has probably been the hardest thing to try and learn to come to terms with, that you don't get a visual memory. Because, there's that book, The Body Holds the Score, and I'm a big believer in that we have more trauma and memories stored in our body than our mind, and we can release those in a healthy way without having to relive it. So whenever I would feel something like, even when I didn't even remember the guy that did it, but when it was maybe a couple of years later, saw him, I didn't know it was him, but my body did. And so I started to feel sick. I started to feel anxious and nauseous. And I was just like, what is going on? And one of the other guys was like, that's who ran into you. Accidental or malicious or not, it was still a trauma and an accident that obviously was living in my body. So some of the memories aren't there. I have memories now of stories people have told me, pictures I've seen. I recall it and I can regurgitate what I've heard and what I know. It's not really my memory. I see photos and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. I look terrible. I hope I was okay. But yeah, I don't remember a lot of that time, but I'm super grateful. And so I had a hyperbaric oxygen chamber put into my place, and that was through my connections in rehabilitation and sports therapy before with Mobot here. So I had a lot of local doctors and therapists come to my aid, knowing that I didn't have insurance and how bad it was. That brought back my memory about 30% in about 3 or 4 months. They would lock me in there daily, like several hours a day, and they'd have to put a note on the top of the chamber to remind me why I was there, because I would try and escape or get it, because I really had no idea what was going on. So it would say, you're meant to be here.
Sorry, I was just going to say, could you actually just explain what a hyperbaric chamber is?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so there's professional ones at, like, say, UCLA and at other more professional sports arenas and healing centers. But you can get portable ones, and so it takes you to pressure, and then it has pure oxygen running through. So that's helping to heal. Oxygen is such a great healer, and then when you're at pressure, it's sort of diluting so that you're taking it on more. That's my best explanation right now, not being a doctor.
No, that sounds good. That sounds good.
And so I would go in there a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the evening. And I had used hyperbaric oxygen therapy before, and it had great success about 10 years ago. So that was one of the first things that a friend suggested and put into my room. And within 3 or 4 months, it really helped bring my memory back. And I'm sure it helped heal other areas. When you have a brain injury, it's still, they say your stomach is the second brain. And so my inflammation, everything was out of whack. I didn't know what to eat, when to eat. There were so many things that were affected for my organs, my digestive health, and from the inflammation. My headaches were like someone had put a block on my head and was just like tightening it. And it was like there were fire ants inside my brain trying to get out, and the pain was just insatiable. It was pretty constant for some time.
I talk to you now and I see no evidence of this in you at all, which is quite phenomenal. Do you feel that when people say that to you, oh, I can't see any evidence of a brain injury, do you feel internally though like is there still something left over? Is there something discordant about the way you present and what's going on internally? Or do you feel fully integrated in your healing now?
I will have accepted I will never be who I was before. So there's definitely things I've had to let go of that I've virtually had a photographic memory before. So I still have a good memory. There's certain things that have gone that may or may not come back. It's different for everyone. I spent so many years trying to get that person back, to be back to that. And now I understand that, I can go to something better. It's just different. And I think that's where in healing journeys, we're trying to get something. We know where we felt good. We're trying to get back to that last place where we felt good, but we can feel good in other ways. And that took me a long time. It still is ongoing now. I've had several people sort of say, oh, you can't use the brain injury as an excuse when I have things happen that still affect me, or I have to work sometimes a little bit harder than others to make sure my cognitive and everything is on track. I still do a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of work around it. It's because it's an invisible injury or an invisible illness, and most of the time my physical appearance didn't really change. So there was always a lot of judgment around, oh, are you sure? You went through that, especially now, like you said, like I now can
Mm.
put voice to it and sound very articulate about it. I've dealt with a lot of the trauma so that I can talk to it like it's a story that happened, and as opposed to I used to relive it every time. So it's taken, what has it been, 5 years? It's only been the last year that I've been able to start talking about it and not break down in front of people or cry, because my body was still processing, even though my mind didn't have all the memories or answers up there.
Mm. Because that loss of identity,
Identity.
it's an egoic death of the greatest proportions in a way.
Yeah.
You literally let go of yourself and shed yourself in a way. And the devastation of that split, I imagine, I can't imagine, that's it. It sounds so traumatic, but on the other side of it, you get to rebuild yourself in whatever way you want,
Mm.
potentially.
I wish I was more aware of that as is coming through the healing of I get to rebuild, rather than I was coming from what I've lost, I've got to get back. And I became everything that came back to me, I held on to it so strongly because I didn't want to lose or be in that place of fear. You just, nothing I did at the time was accepted by society. So I no longer behaved like what would be deemed as a good person for society. So it was close between sort of Asperger's and my behavior, my personality, my aggression, different things like that. I had no filter. The things that would come out of my mouth, I literally had to be hidden so I didn't offend anyone, excuse me. So, and the personality changes, if we think about that, most of our personality, what we do, from what we wear, what we eat, and how we go out into the world, is based on memories, whether something good or bad has happened and we liked it, so we kept doing it. So even from what we wear, what humor what music, humor, everything like that is shaped by our experiences of good or bad, of what we think is good or bad. So we take that on more. So it's like, oh, I got more compliments in X, Y, and Z. I'm going to wear that more. I feel good in that. I didn't have that. So I was wearing ball gowns and cowboy boots and a denim jacket to go and get coffee, because they said that I would say, but it's so pretty, why wouldn't I wear it? There was just no concept of reality. Luckily in Venice, I just fit it in.
I'm going to jump in here for a sec to talk to you about my all-time favorite skincare product, Osea's Sea Serum. Because when I first discovered the benefits of hyaluronic acid a few years ago, I fell madly in love with it, and I went on a hunt to find the perfect formula. Most of them, although they worked, they left my face with a kind of tacky, sticky feeling that turned into a big shiny mess after I put on moisturizer and foundation. But then I stumbled across Osea's Sea Serum, and I couldn't believe how easily it settled into my skin without making me look like a disco ball by the end of the day. Osea's newly upgraded formula contains two powerful types of hyaluronic acid, plus Japanese miru seaweed, which replenishes and balances the skin's natural moisture level, volcanic marine ferment to plump and smooth out those fine lines, and snow mushroom to form a hydration layer on the skin which seals in all the moisture. And not only that, and this is the reason I'm so happy to stand behind this company, Osea is also vegan, cruelty-free, climate neutral, and they've just become ocean positive, which for me, being an Aussie growing up in the ocean, is a truly meaningful, high-integrity company ethos that I'm excited to support. So, if you would like to try this awesome hyaluronic sea serum and support a certified ethical company in the process, you can use my discount code UA10, so that's Urban Ascension 10, UA10, to receive 10% off when you go to Osea's website, and that's spelt OSEA. It'll change your life. Well, your skin's life anyway. It certainly did mine. It's almost like you regressed to that childlike state. I mean, all we see all over Instagram, go back to your inner child and just play and be free again. But actually, the reality of that, if we really achieved that state, which it sounds like you went back to, you got to wipe, in a way, all of those I guess, understandings and that neural network that you had created and understood reality and society to be, and go back to the beginning of just expressing yourself of, here's a beautiful dress, I want to wear it. But actually the flip side of that is that we do need the boundaries that are created by the society we're brought up in. But ironically, the healing journey is where often need to become aware of what those boundaries are that we've unconsciously absorbed growing up, so that we can then construct them and reconstruct them in the way that we want to live in the world. It just sounds like you've gone through the most intense deconstruction ever.
Yes, yes, it definitely was. And I'm a big believer in, divine intervention and, what is needed, either what are you thinking, what are you attracting, what needs to happen. I think I did maybe a shortcut of what could have taken 5 or 10 years of transformation work in a couple of years, because there was still that desperation to survive, when I'd have moments of clarity, realizing that, I was losing my business as well, and friends and people around me, just because they couldn't handle seeing me one way, but me acting completely opposite to what I'd acted before. It was hard for people to take, and I totally understand that. But it definitely cracked open my heart, which I didn't realize was even closed, because I'm such a giver and a lover and all of that. But the part that was closed off was me allowing anything to come in for me. So I was constantly pouring out. But there was several moments, and I say I've seen more shamans than the Kardashians have taken selfies now. There's been a few shamans in my life.
Yes,
and
yes.
help me work through a lot of that. And I'm always, and like I said, believer in why, like what do I need to learn, and who do I need to become from this? What can I get out of this that can help myself or others? And I feel like I've always sort of thought like that. If I've gone through something, I'm like, I can't be the only one coming through this successfully. There's got to be someone that I can help with this. So once I became a little bit more clear on what I was going through, and the first few years, I literally was probably in bliss. Like, if you think about a monk on the hill, they're in the present, and that's what makes it so amazing. I only had the present. I had no past memories. I had no future. There was no way to think like that. So I lived in the present. I made decisions in the present, hence choosing ball gowns because it was pretty in the moment, things like that. Those moments, if I can try and think about them, would have been quite blissful. There was just no problems. But that's not how society is. So finding ways to come back to society, and then I fully immersed myself in it, got quite stressed out when I need to get back on. And then coming back to finding balance and bringing forward the lessons and everything that I learned from the injury, and combining it with how society is, or expects us to be, to find a place to live there. I'm very one with who I am and how I am now. And I know, not perfect, never been perfect. There's definitely things I still do that I'm like, hope no one noticed that. So yeah, the integration has been long and interesting.
Did you one day recover your long-term memory? Can you remember your childhood, or can you remember your wedding day, or did things come back to you one day?
Most did, and it was over time. It was we looked at it like fishing, and I was recommended to find a lot of people from my past, family and things like that, and just keep having conversations, because they're in there. They're just disconnected. Our brain, we don't use, we don't use half of it. So I definitely had conversations with people where I heard stories where I was like, that sounds like something I would have done, but I don't remember. And they would come back, never in any order, never in any choice or anything like that. For example, there was someone that I had an altercation with, and we were sorting it out. I saw him super friendly. Hey, how you doing? My vague memories of him. He apparently texted a friend of mine and said, oh my God, thank Lani for being so cool about everything. And it was about 2 weeks later, I was going for a walk and doing my meditation walk, and all the memories came back of what we went through. And I remember running back going, oh my God, I meant to hate him. Like, what is going on? I was like, Yeah, but it healed something that I would probably not have consciously gone into heal. I would have just gone, move on.
Mm.
So it was an interesting way to look at it.
Mm.
So there's still a lot more of my memory has come back long term, short term's, good as well. Most of it has come back. There's definitely things that people say to me that I don't have a quick memory that comes up. It definitely sounds like me. Or there's people I've said,
Mm.
oh, do you want to try? Do you want to go and do this with me? I haven't done it before. And they're like, actually, you have. We did it for the first time a couple of years ago. Here's the photos. And I just don't even remember being there with them. So God knows what I said
Mm.
either. Like, forgive me.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. And you know what
Yeah, wow.
Aussie boys are like? I got so many messages of just like, remember you promised me this. Remember you promised me that. Remember this. I was like, you
Yeah,
guys are the
yeah.
worst.
And you're like, you guys are pulling my leg.
Exactly. I said I might have lost my mind, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah. So, do you mind if we track back a little bit beyond this obviously hugely transformative experience? And at the beginning of the interview, you said that you'd struggled with things like an eating disorder and drug addiction, which had originally sort of set you on the path. And then more recently, you said that this whole experience cracked your heart open. So, if we just thinking about, because obviously there are a lot of listeners who are on their own healing journey, and would you say that it was the closed heart and that disconnection from a deeper love or self-love that originally got you into a place of an eating disorder or a drug addiction, and pulling yourself out of those experiences and onto the path of vegan chef and yoga instructor and wellness coach and sports therapist and all those things, that was, I guess that was the first recorrection and the first attempt or the first calling of your soul saying, here, let's attempt to open the heart. What could you talk about that time in your life and how you reflect on that as compared to what you've just been through?
Mm. Yeah, it definitely got me stuck. Like, I didn't know I had a problem, an eating disorder or anything like that. I just thought I had no self-control. Eating disorders weren't really spoken about back then. I had mimicked what was going on around me, and also, it's using it as a control mechanism when there's not control in your life. So I was using it as a control thing as well. And so when there was an intervention, and friends and family said, all right, you need to go into rehab, my friend. And I was like, what for? And I was probably, about 90, under 100 pounds. I wasn't very, didn't weigh much and had a lot going on. So that was the start of it. What I learned in there about myself, who I am, why I was doing it, what I needed to do, I really took the bull by the horns and was like, holy moly, I have a lot to deal with. There was significant trauma as a child that I think that is what was a catalyst for me to go down that path. In saying that, I think with that trauma, I buried my heart so very deeply because it was getting hurt. So obviously that was a protective thing that, not really consciously aware of, but, we are smarter than we know how to explain at that age. So I did that to protect myself, and then became sort of putting myself in positions where people could hurt me because I wanted to stop hurting myself, which is what the eating disorder and drug addiction. And so I thought I'd cured that. All I did was transfer it to put it into other people may hurt me because I'm not brave enough to hurt myself anymore. So I put myself in a few abusive relationships and things like that. So it took quite a bit of time to figure out that path. But while I was on it, I was always studying and trying to learn more and helping others. I was still working in therapy and things like that, not just for myself, but for others. I studied hypnosis, NLP, because I'm a big believer in having a really massive toolbox that you can select from and not just having one thing. Like, for example, if a handyman arrives at your house to fix something and he just has a hammer, I don't think I'm going to trust him. But if the handyman arrives with a big truck full of tools, I'm like, okay, you can take care of everything. So I started to think like that for my own mental toolbox, because I didn't really have anyone with me at the time. So I always had something big to open up and go, okay, I'm feeling this while I'm going through it. There's sort of no one around. What can I do right now to self-regulate, to help myself get through this moment? Because it does go and it does get better. It can take a long time. You have to be quite brave when you're facing, old trauma that you need to heal. So when I felt like I got to a really good place with that, which also gave me the courage to drop everything in Australia and take on a new country, a new business, a new idea, and all of that kind of stuff. So when this happened, it was almost like when the brain injury happened, I'd done my Spartan race training, and the brain injury was the Spartan race, and I thought I was ready. You know how we just go, I'm ready for the next level, God, source, universe, let's go. And then it comes, you're, whoa, okay, back up. I know I need to become that, but maybe I was not ready.
I was just discussing this with another guest about, when you call it in and you're like, all right, let's go. I just want to get through this. Whatever it is I need, bring it on. And then it comes and you're like flat on your back, literally in your case. And you're like, holy crap. All right. I wasn't quite expecting that you would punch me in the face.
No, literally. I just, could never have imagined that. And I think in some way, shape or form, I ask for it. Everything I've learned over the years has come through now for me to channel and push it in a way to help others on so many levels of, healing from so many different sides of things. I know that I don't want to overshare with too much time. I waste too much time, but there was a very clear dream that I had, and I was dressed in, and this is what changed it. I was dressed in like a full wetsuit, covered up, like going booties, everything, going out into the cold water. I sat on the edge of a cliff, waited for the tide to go way, way out. I walked out with the tide. There was like oysters and rocks, and it was like very dangerous, walking out for a long time. Sat on the edge, got like a shuck to open up an oyster, and shucked it open, and my heart was in there. And it was like beaming, shining, new, like it had never been used.
Chills. I've got chills.
That was like, that was a defining moment, and it was just so clear and real, and that I had buried it so well that I don't think without the injury and what I went through, I would ever have actually found it that quickly. And so now it's been returning it to its rightful place on like a pedestal and shining and not in the dark, and using it. And it's interesting that learning to use my heart in ways that I hadn't before. And it sounds a bit woo-woo one way to think about it, but I had a childlike heart, so it also was very sensitive, very emotional, and integrating my adult self, all my decades of experience and stuff that happens to us that we sort of carry with this new heart energy. It was very interesting.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And I think that the soul never calls in more than it actually can deal with. And I often find that the people who are meant to be the leaders and the guides in these realms are the ones who actually go through the deepest journey and take the biggest hits and require the most intense recovery, because the learning process that you go through experientially, and then of course everything that you just absorb intellectually around healing, is the very thing that you need to then be the person who you are now, where I'm like, you need to write a book, you need to be a keynote speaker, you need to be getting this out there. Everyone needs to hear your story, feel your wisdom, and you're such an inspiration and you are so strong, and I just want to honor you.
Thank you. You're going to make me cry. Still a sensitive little soul, and sometimes I think that's what had to happen. I was so masculine and driven, and always came from a good place, but I wasn't integrating, heart and feminine, and finding I was constantly pretzeling myself to be what society thinks a businesswoman, or be like a man and all of that sort of stuff, instead of, tuning into my divine power, which is the feminine, and and embracing that and using that in ways. And I am very, it's interesting. It's only been the last year or so about being so grateful for the accident, and like looking backwards and seeing, who I've become, and that I don't think without it I could ever have become who I've become in this way. I didn't know I was asking for this, but I always say to people when they're going through a lot, or there's a lot on their plate, or a lot of problems, I'm like, you have to think about, what did you ask for? Who have you asked for to become? If it's big, you're going to have bigger things thrown your way. If that's what you really want, you're going to be tested. And what really came true out of all of this, and even during COVID and everything that's happened for everyone in the last 2 years, was a sense of faith in something outside of ourselves, whether you call it source, universe, God, that connection, that intention, that prayer, meditation that you need to do daily, has changed my life.
And through that, you're going to change the lives of others. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And we will put all your details in the show notes. So if anybody wants to connect with you, they'll know where to find you. This has been such a blessing of a chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to taking the step forward to share. So thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving The Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.